In this tutorial we're going to get the pinch zoom part of the Android image viewer application working. Welcome to mobile application tutorials. Right, now we're going to just get the pinch and zoom part of the tutorial working, so we'll just make a start on that straight away. Okay, so we're going to have to create some more members here. We want to specify the minimum and maximum size of our zoom. The minimum size we'll keep to 1 because we just want it to go down to the current displayed size of the image. And the maximum size, you can make it any factor at all. I'm just going to make it zoom in by a factor of 3. It's just a number that came out of the top of my head. So set up members for those. And it will be a float. And I'll just call it M. We'll do min zoom first. Now we'll do the maximum zoom. And I'll make that 3. Now we're going to set up a new member called a scale factor. Now scale factor just represents the multiplication value that we're actually increasing the image by, because we'll use that value for actually increasing the size of our image, so to say. Okay, so I'll call this member scale factor. This represents actual zoom value, how much we're zooming into. And again, it has to be a float. And we'll set that to always start off at 1, just the original size of our image. Okay, now we need to create what we're going to call a scale gesture detector, and it's functionality provided to us by Android that will actually be able to calculate the scale from when we sort of pinch and zoom with our fingers. It will return to us that actual scale factor. So it's a very convenient helper method provided by Android. And it's called Scale Gesture Detector, and I'll just call it member Scale Gesture Detect. I was about to misspell detector. Okay. Right, next stage is we want to create a class, and this class will be a listener that will listen to the 2 fingers on the display pinching and zooming. I'll call this class Scale Listener. And it's going to extend the scale gesture detector. And we're going to call simple on scale gesture listener. And I want to override one of the methods here. And it's going to be at the on scale. So this is going to sort of get returned to us once a scale based on the 2 finger pinch zoom's been done. Okay, now I can set my scale factor here, and we'll always multiply it by the current scale. The scale can go up or down, so we'll always add to what the original value is. Okay, so just to get to that, it's called Detector, getScaleFactor. Okay, now here's where we want to set our minimum and maximum values. At the moment this is indefinite. It can go down or up to whatever size you want. So we're going to control the sizes of it. So we're going to use the mathmin, mathmax functions to set limits, minimum, maximum limits to how much we can zoom in and out. Okay, so call mScaleFactor again. And we'll call it MathMax. And we're going to pass in, for one member, the minimum zoom value. And then we're going to do a math.min. And we'll pass in here the member max zoom. And we're going to compare that against our scale factor. Okay, so this will just set the controls for the minimum maximum size, so keep it within that range. And once we've set up the scale factor, we need to do one more thing. Once we've pinched or zoomed, we need to notify Android that we've done this, so we need to invalidate, and we're also going to call request layout, so we can call the onMeasure and resize our image if necessary. So to do that, we need to invalidate it so we can update our display, and then call to request layout, so we can call our onMeasure to resize our image if we're zooming in or zooming back out. We'll need to make our image smaller, so we need these two lines here as well. Okay, so once we've done this, we need to actually set up and initialize our scale gesture detector, and we'll do that from inside the image view constructor. So call ScaleGestureDetector. And it's going to take two members. One's going to be the context. Another one will be our scale listener. Okay, that's now done. Now we need to set up a listener just to basically, once you press your finger on the display itself, we need to have a listener for that just to notify us of that event. To do that, we need to just override method in our custom image view. It's called onTouchEvent. Just need to scroll down. onTouchEvent here. Okay, and this, let me change this. I'm just going to change it to return true. Okay, so from here we need to notify our scale gesture listener that an event has happened. So we need to call the detector and call onTouchEvent and pass in the event. Okay, so we've just notified our scale gesture detector something's happened. Here's some values. Can you please calculate whether or not we need to scale this and give me the scale value back? And once we've done that, now we need to go back to our onMeasure from the previous tutorial, because we might need to resize our image. If we're zooming in, we probably want to fill in the entire display with our image. If we're zooming back out, we might want to go to the original size of our image, which might only take out part of the display. And so to do that, we need to go into our onMeasure method. Okay, so I'm going to add two more local members here to represent the scaled width and height. I need to call math round because we're going to be passing in the scale factor here. So if we go to our original image width and just multiply that by the scale factor, which will give us a scaled width, and do the same for height. Okay, now we've got these two values here representing the scaled width and height. We can just pass these into our set dimension. Okay, so that's now done. So we can actually now change the size of our view depending on whether or not we're pinching or zooming. Okay, now we just need to go into our onDraw and draw a scaled version of our bitmap depending on how much we've pinched or zoomed. So we go to Canvas and call Scale, and all we need to do is pass in the scale factor. For some reason I called save again instead of scale. Let's fix that. Okay, Now, this line of code I'm going to use for the following tutorials to this, especially relevant to panning. But if I'm using this line of code just purely for pinching and zooming and nothing else, it's not so great. It's always going to pinch and zoom from the same point on the display, probably the top left-hand corner. I'm going to add another line of code similar to this, where we can pinch and zoom from the position of our fingers. So if we just copy this line, let me comment this line out, and this is only going to be this line is only going to be used for this tutorial here, but it's good for you to know that it exists. Okay, so we need to call Scale Gesture Detector again, get focus X, so this is the position of where we're actually doing the X coordinate of the focus, and there's the same for Y. So this will give us a bit of a better experience for zooming in, because we'll be zooming in theory from where our fingers are. Okay, that's it. So we might as well try running this and see what happens. Display's now started up. Oh, let's zoom in on some nice looking ramen. So we've got the display there, so let's put our fingers there and zoom in. Okay, so you've zoomed right in, zoomed right out, zoomed right in. Okay, so, and that's by a factor of 3 we're zooming in here. Okay, this is probably a good stage for us just to put some breakpoints in there and just go through the code we've changed when we're running the application, just to reinforce what we've learned here. So I'm adding a breakpoint to the gesture detector when we actually create it. I'm going to put one here for when the finger is pressed on our screen. I might put one on onMeasure later. It does get called a lot of times. And I've already got one inside the onScale listener. Okay, so let's try running debug. And I've already started up application, so I'm just going to click continue. Okay, so let's select the ramen again. Hold the finger down. Okay, so we're going to be drawing our image here, which is why the breakpoint's happening there. So select that. So I've now got the full-size image from the onDraw. So let's put some fingers down there and zoom in. Okay, so onTouchEvent has registered that I've touched the finger to display. We're not filtering exactly what sort of gesture we've done, we're just putting them all. But from that, we're going to pass in this event values into our gesture detector. And it's been called a number of times, so I'm just going to remove that. Okay, so because we've called the Scale Gesture Detector from inside the onTouchEvent, we get supplied with this configured detector, and from there it will provide us with a scale. So let's see what that scale is. Okay, so it's giving us a scale of 1. It might come back to us, that's probably returning to us the original scale value. Let's continue on. So I've got the scale here. Okay, so it's calling the original value. It's now calling the second time around of what we've actually scaled to, and this time it's a scale of 2.47. That will fit in our maximum and minimum values, so we're going to preset that. So scale factor is now up to 2.47. Now we've increased our scale factor, we want to adjust our width and our height here of the scaled width and height. Let's see what the scaled width and height are. Scaled width and height, as you can see, have now increased in size, and so we're just going to be showing a portion of that in the screen display, but it will be showing up as zoomed in. So you can see it's considerably zoomed in with these new scaled width and heights, and we'll set the measured dimension. This measured dimension of our display will never ever be bigger than our display, because display, you can only show a maximum physically within your display, so we'll set that. But if we pinch back in again, we might want to use a scaled width and height. Anyway, let's continue on, and just let me double check that I've got a breakpoint in the on drawer. Let's go to on drawer. Okay, we have. Let's continue on. So now that we've set the measurements, we've worked out the scale factor, we can pass that into our display to on draw. So as you can see, we're going to pass in the new scale factors with the focus representing where we're putting our fingers on the display from, and we're also going to draw the bitmap. So let's continue on, and you can see here we do have a zoomed in. Let me try and bring that close to the display. We do have a zoomed in image of the bowl of ramen. Okay, so that concludes this episode of the Android Image Viewer application tutorial. We were introduced to some event listeners. One was an onTouchEvent listener, which actually notifies us that a finger's actually gone on the display. And then we used a helper function called a ScaleGestureDetector listener that can pass the values from the onTouch listener and do all the heavy calculations for us. It can work out the actual scale of our fingers, the scale representing our fingers zooming in and out, and we pass those values back to us. And from that, once we've got the scale factor, we can scale our canvas by that scale factor. And we're also using the onMeasure method as well, just to readjust our image size if needed, just to fill up the whole display or pinch back down to the original display of the image. Anyway, that concludes this tutorial. If you want to get notified of the next episode to this tutorial or any of the other tutorials series that I'm working on, click on the subscribe button just there. That's if you're watching this from a PC. And surrounding me is all my social media accounts, so to get update with all the events and news happening in the world of mobile application tutorials, you can click on any of those clickable PC links to any of my social media accounts. And directly above me is a link to my website. And so my website, not only can you watch the videos from my website, it's got descriptions of all the code changes we make in there, which is quite useful when you're following the tutorial. And it's also got information of where you can get the code from GitHub as well. That's it for this one. Bye for now.